Hello, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for participating in California Air Resources Board's job fair today. My name is Heather Kuros, and I am the Assistant Division Chief of CARB's Enforcement Division. My staff and I are excited to tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do, and showcase some upcoming employment opportunities within the division. I have been with the Enforcement Division in various roles for the last 10 years, and I'm very proud of the work and accomplishments that we have done. The variety of projects and the environmental regulations the division enforces support the entire agency and directly benefit millions of California citizens. I am pleased to announce that the Enforcement Division is quickly expanding. We have close to 40 new positions entering our division between now and 2024. This job fair is put together to let you know about these new opportunities and to help you on your employment journey, whether you are looking to start now or sometime in the future. I would now like to introduce you to our host for this afternoon, Nick Kane, who will navigate you through a short presentation highlighting the division. We will also be hearing from Ellie Vargas from our Administrative Services Division, who will touch on the state's hiring procedures to help you navigate through the process. There will also be a series of breakout sessions where you can learn about the different branches that make up our division. In the breakout sessions, you will be able to chat with inspectors and investigators, ask questions, and get more information directly from current staff about the role they play in the division. With that, I will pass it over to Nick to get us started. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Heather, and thank you to everyone who is attending. I see the poll results are being shared here. I just want to make sure everyone can see the presentation, right? Thumbs up if you guys can see it. Okay, good. Okay. So as Heather said, my name is Nick Kane. I'm an air pollution specialist in the Enforcement Division. And before we have our branch specific breakout rooms, I'm going to talk a little bit about CARB, the Enforcement Division, who we are, what kinds of work we do, and why you might want to apply. So with that said, I'll just go ahead and jump right in. Before we can explain the important work that is done in CARB's Enforcement Division, it's important to understand how our agency, the California Air Resources Board, fits into the wide world of air quality improvement. So CARB is part of a tiered system for achieving air quality improvements that extends all the way to the national level. The main players in that effort include the United States Environmental Protection Agency, along with its state equivalent, the California EPA. And then there's the California Air Resources Board and the various local air districts. And while all of these agencies work cooperatively, each agency has its own separate responsibilities and authorities for different sources of air pollution. So the EPA sets and enforces national health-based air quality standards for air pollutants. It regulates interstate transportation. It establishes emission limits and standards for large industrial facilities like oil refineries and power plants, selected source categories, and vehicles like trains and planes and ships. Within California, CARB is the lead agency for air pollution climate change programs. We oversee all the air pollution control efforts in the state. CARB is responsible for adopting standards for cars and trucks and buses. It researches the causes of and solutions to air pollution and adopts California ambient air quality standards. We also regulate fuels and consumer products, maintain emission inventories, administer greenhouse gas programs. We manage wildfire smoke programs and provide district oversight, amongst other things. And then the 35 local air districts in California that CARB oversees are responsible for regional air quality planning. They do local monitoring, permitting, and enforcement, and they share that goal of attaining and maintaining air quality standards in the state. So CARB's mission is to promote and protect public health, welfare, and ecological resources through the effective reduction of air pollutants while recognizing and considering the effects on the economy. CARB's vision is a future where all Californians breathe healthy and clean air. They benefit from actions to address climate change, and where race and income are no longer predictors for life outcomes. We adopt regulations to develop programs that support that agency's mission and vision. And even though we're a state agency, the whole world looks at our programs. Other countries seek our knowledge and expertise in air quality. So how do we fit in the enforcement division? So within CARB, there are several divisions and each has its own unique focus. Some divisions focus on regulatory development while others are more research oriented. The enforcement division, unsurprisingly, is focused on enforcing the various regulations that CARB develops. So I spoke about how CARB has a mission to achieve emission reductions and improve air quality in California. And while the research that other divisions do provides insight into where those reductions are needed, and the regulatory development provides direction to stakeholders on their requirements to achieve those reductions, enforcement is one of the ways that it all comes together and we ensure it happens in the real world. Our enforcement efforts extend to vehicle certifications, diesel fleet rules, consumer products, climate programs, and local agency oversight. We also provide training and compliance assistance, not only to regulated communities, but also other regulatory agencies. And we work alongside communities that are impacted the most by sources of air pollution. So a big part of our work is in environmental justice communities to investigate air quality concerns and explore unique solutions to improve air quality in those areas. So what makes enforcement so important? As I mentioned before, emission benefits that CARB determines are necessary through studies or that we write regulations about really only achieve their intended goal and effect when they're effective in the real world, and the enforcement division works to achieve that. One of our primary goals is ensuring a level playing field for regulated entities that we work with. In other words, if you choose to comply and you're doing your part to reduce emissions and improve the health of people in the state, it often bears a cost. And that cost could put you at a disadvantage to people who choose to ignore those requirements because they're delaying the costs at the expense of the health of the people around them. So we seek to improve compliance rates by making that cost of compliance worth it, and by extension, the cost of non-compliance, a risk people don't want to take. And we do that through investigatory work, inspections, often in response to community input, the assessment of penalties for non-compliance, the development of compliance plans to ensure that when violations are found, they're remedied in an effective way. And one thing I'd like to highlight is that the enforcement division specifically has likely played a role in at least some area of your life within California. Our programs span all kinds of industries and activities and products. You might not have realized it, but we're looking out for you anytime you drive on roads that have diesel trucks, or you purchase various products like plywood or aerosol cans or anything that produces potentially harmful pollutants that can impact your health. If you're pumping gas at a gas station, walking past a construction site, there's a good chance that there's a regulation in place to improve your safety from an air quality standpoint, and enforcement staff are playing a critical role every day in ensuring that that regulation is followed. Okay, so that's our background and how we fit into the bigger picture. And with all of that said, I want to take the next few slides to explore some of the different kinds of work that we do. One of the big things that we do is inspections for various regulations, where we're going out into the field and checking for compliance with requirements of any given rule. Those inspections can be conducted anywhere from on ships that are at the many ports up and down the coast of California. They could take place at rail yards or fuel refineries to ensure compliance with diesel engine rules or cargo tank vapor recovery rules. They can be anywhere that trucks and buses or other heavy-duty vehicles operate within the state, including on the roadside. We also go out to locations as a result of complaints that we receive from the public. So for instance, if you were to notice that there were trucks idling constantly within 100 feet of your child's school, enforcement division would be the ones who send inspectors out to investigate. They might write citations, follow up with investigations, and generally just ensure that steps are taken to reduce emissions in those locations. As part of our effort to do inspections throughout the state, we also collaborate with various agencies, including the air districts and the California Highway Patrol. In those scenarios, we might have a partnership that allows us to set up our own inspection operation, like at a CHP weigh station, or we also might extend our enforcement authority to other agencies so they can perform inspections, which broadens our reach and improves the effectiveness of our regulations. These inspections are important because not only are they how we identify violations happening in the field, but they also allow us to connect with the industries that we work with. Enforcement has an intimate understanding of a lot of the industries that CARB regulates because we're often in the field working with the people who are affected by the regulations. And that provides us with a unique perspective that helps us in other areas, which I'll get to here in the next few slides. Like our work in communities. So our engagement with stakeholders isn't limited to just regulated entities. It expands to the communities that are impacted by air pollution the most and who have a personal vested interest in the success of our regulations. A major goal of ours is to work towards equal access to clean air across the state, but many areas, often those with economically disadvantaged communities, experience a disproportionate level of pollution. So in 2017, as a response to Assembly Bill 617, CARB established the Community Air Protection Program with a focus to reduce exposure in communities most impacted by air pollution. CARB enforcement conducts targeted inspections in these areas, and we work closely with the community members to understand where our resources are most effective. If a regulated entity is found in violation and has to pay a penalty, they can often choose to direct a portion of those funds to what's called a supplemental environmental project. And those are projects within communities that use violation funds to directly improve local air quality. Enforcement works directly with community groups to design those projects so that they can achieve the maximum benefit. For example, violation funds have been used to install air filters in schools, providing improved air quality for the students in those locations. These supplemental environmental projects are a major focus of the work in the community outreach and enforcement section in our stationary source branch. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but if they're of interest to you, that could be one of the places you check in during our breakout sessions. Okay, so one of the most exciting elements of enforcement is our use of innovative new technology to become more efficient and more accurate and improve compliance rates. Front and center in the arena right now is our use of the PEAKS emission monitoring systems to enforce the new heavy-duty inspection and maintenance regulation, and that's for heavy-duty trucks. You can see an example in the bottom right photo here. Basically what they are is emissions capture systems that can be placed on the roadside or elsewhere throughout the state. And as trucks pass through them, emissions are captured and analyzed and used to identify high emitters who enforcement staff can follow up with. So staff within the enforcement division helped develop this technology. They used their experience in programming and electrical design and emission analysis and other technical skills. And this is a prime example of how new technologies are being used to expand the scope of our enforcement while improving the accuracy of our efforts. And then on the back end, the data that we collect from these types of devices or other places like in-person field inspections or any other source provide major insight into the compliance rates throughout the state and where our enforcement efforts should be focused. So we're developing new systems and procedures to use that data, and staff with programming and data analysis skills are extremely useful for those efforts. Other areas that we use new technology include surveillance efforts for potential violators, the use of infrared cameras to identify sources of pollution. There are even future plans to incorporate drones for use in emission analysis in hard to reach places. So in general, the use of technology is always expanding in the enforcement field and promises exciting new avenues for improving compliance. So that expertise in the development and testing and use of those technologies is an increasingly sought after skill set. We mentioned that the enforcement division spends a good deal of time interacting with regulated entities and the communities impacted by our regulations. And because of that connection, enforcement division is often called upon more and more to provide insight during the development stages of CARB regs. So an example of a recent regulation we worked on is the heavy duty inspection and maintenance regulation. And that involved extensive interdivisional collaboration to develop requirements, inspection procedures, and training procedures that drew upon our enforcement experience and the lessons that we've learned during our enforcement of previous regulations. We know what works and what doesn't, and our input can help to improve our authority and our scope and just the general enforceability of CARB's requirements moving forward. I mentioned before, we have agreements with other partner agencies to carry out inspections for enforcement, and that it helps to expand our reach into the communities at a local level. So as we move forward, we're trying to develop regulations with that coordination and cooperation built into our processes to be as effective as possible. Okay, so now that I have talked a little bit about what we do and hopefully piqued your interest, and you're all scrambling to get your applications in, we're going to switch gears for a few minutes and talk about applying to CARB and the positions that we have available, and then the specific branches that might have open positions. So right now, I'm just going to hand the presentation over to Elizabeth from our Administrative Services Division for a few brief slides that are meant to help with that application process. Elizabeth, are you?
Hi, thanks, Nick. My name is Elizabeth. I'll be going over how to apply for state jobs. Okay, so the plan. So first we'll be talking about an overview of the exam employment application process. So that includes where to search for the state job, the exam assessment process, how to apply, and how to get started. Then we'll touch on the CalHR, CalCareers overview. And then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. Please let me know if you have any, and if there is something that I'm unable to answer at this time, please reach out to our CARBS exams inbox at exams@arb.ca.gov or careers inbox at careers@arb.ca.gov. I can mention those again towards the end of my presentation. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so here are the steps to take in this order. So first, we're going to want to decide the field and or departments you are interested in. Step 2, we're going to take the examination assessment. Step 3, apply for the jobs. And finally, if the hiring manager is interested in your application, you will be selected for an interview. Okay, so step 1, the search. So we're going to search and decide your field of interest. And then you can start their CalHR website at www.jobs.ca.gov. And that's also the CalCareers website. You're going to want to click on the Get a State Job icon. That's where you can browse the career field and see the jobs available. So it's best to thoroughly read the job postings, including the application package checklist, which are the documents needed for the application process. So that also includes the duty statement that's located on the job posting. The duty statement, for those that are unaware of what that is, it's a document outlining the specific job duties of the position. And the job posting should also include the minimum requirements, and it will explain what the job is like and the salary range. All right, so step 2, the assessment. So once you find the job you want, your education experience, abilities, and knowledge will be evaluated through the assessment. Sometimes they're online, sometimes they are department specific. So the classification specification is actually the civil service definition of a type of job classification as approved by the board. It typically includes a class title, class code, description, knowledge, skills, and abilities, the minimum qualifications, and other specifics. It is also known as the job description. Some assessments are found online, and you can find those on CalCareers under the exam assessment search, located under Get a State Job. If you are unable to find one online for CARB, please reach out to the CARB exams inbox at exams@arb.ca.gov. So next, you're going to want to read the exam bulletin to see the qualifications needed, like a job posting. It will explain what the job is like, the salary range, and give you an overview of the exam assessment process. If you are interested and qualified in an online exam, take the assessment. If you pass, then you are eligible to start applying for the jobs. Just an FYI, make sure you read the exam bulletin thoroughly, as some departments give the exams immediately. The Air Resource Technician 1 and 2 exams are continuous. The cutoff dates are at the end of each month. For example, if you submit your exam before or the day of the last of the month, it will be processed for that month. And typically that takes about 4 to 6 weeks after the cutoff date. If you were to submit it the day after, it will be held until the next cutoff date and be processed for that month it was submitted. The last cutoff date for the Air Resource Technician 1 and 2 exams for 2022 will be November 30th, because we are scheduled to do a job analysis for the upcoming year. Exams for classifications such as an Air Resource Supervisor 1 and 2 are dated, meaning the dates are not as often as the ART 1 and 2. Those are given annually, and if you miss the cutoff date, your exam will be held until the next cutoff date. So step 3, apply. Oh, excuse me, sorry, yeah. So you only need to fill out one job application, and you can use the same form to apply for multiple positions. I highly recommend creating 2 or 3 applications, tailoring them to different jobs. You can also upload other attachments if needed, such as resumes and writing samples. If departments like what they see in your application package, you will be called for an interview. So to get started, so you can create one or multiple application templates through your CalCareers account. As mentioned before, it is highly recommended, tailoring them to different jobs and upload any other attachments. From your account, you can begin the assessment process and sometimes receive instant results. You can find these results under your exams assessments. If you do not see instant results, I would wait 24 to 48 hours for them to appear. If they do not appear on your CalCareers account, I would highly recommend contacting CalCareers. You can create and manage your applications and can submit them to departments when you are ready to apply for a job. You can also set up alerts to notify you when new jobs are posted. You click the login icon above to get started in CalCareers. All right, so CalHR website tour. So you can search for state jobs through CalHR by clicking Job Seeker. There you will find options such as applying for jobs and exams assessments, which will lead you to the CalCareers website. Seminars for applicants and additional options for people with disabilities and student jobs. If you aren't familiar with some verbiage, such as duty statement or class specification, CalCareers also has a glossary that can be very helpful under help and tutorials. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are qualifications I must have to qualify for an air resources engineer, air pollution specialist, and with the state of California? What kind of duties can I expect to see in these positions? So you can find these in the job postings for each one, the duty statements and class specifications. All right, questions and resources. So CARB has 2 inboxes you can contact. One is our careers inbox. It's careers@arb.ca.gov. And then we have another one, it's exams@arb.ca.gov. If you are having any issues or have questions in regards to any CARB examinations, please feel free to reach out to us. Someone will definitely answer you. Also, you can look into CalHR. They have lunchtime seminars, video tutorials, and resume samples. And that concludes my portion. However, here you can see the available classifications. We have the ART 2, Air Pollution Specialist, Air Resources Engineer. Listed beneath are the minimum qualifications for each classification, the salaries, and currently the vacancies in Enforcement Division.
Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, so Elizabeth already spoke a little bit about the minimum qualifications. The only thing that I wanted to add here, just in addition to minimum qualifications, it might be helpful to know other desirable traits that we are looking for when we're hiring new staff. So depending on what section or team is performing the work, I'm going to expand on that in the next slide as we talk about all the different teams that we have here before we go to breakout rooms. But in general, we're looking for people who might want to get out of the office and perform field inspections, people who want to work with community groups and design SEPs or community projects. We look for people who are able to develop innovative procedures and strategies and technologies. And then we also value proficiency in the use of data and data management systems. And of course, writing skills are always helpful across the division. So Before you go into the breakout rooms to hear from your various branches that you will hopefully be applying to, I'm just going to give a brief overview of each branch that you see here on this slide and give you an idea of what they do. Enforcement Division has 5 branches, and then within there are several sections that perform unique duties. So on the left, you can see the Citations and Registration Enforcement Branch, or CREB, which is home to 3 sections. It's the best branch because it's the one I work in, but also on the citation side, our core function is the support of the processing and public assistance generated from citations issued by inspections in the field. We also support certifications for the Cargo Tank Vapor Recovery Program, and that controls emissions from those large tank trucks that you see on the road transporting gasoline. That branch also has the Equipment Registration section, which primarily focuses on administering the Portable Equipment Registration Program, or PERP, and that allows portable diesel-powered equipment to operate throughout the state without the need for district permits. And then we have the Portable Equipment Operations section, which works closely with the Equipment Registration section to administer PERP and has a focus on the technical elements surrounding that regulation, and then also field inspections associated with cargo tanks. So within all of those programs, working with the public is very important. We have to explain complex regulations and requirements across multiple regulations, so interpersonal skills, attention to detail, organizational skills are greatly valued. And oftentimes that public assistance is provided in other languages, so we like to see multilingual skills as well. Moving to the right, we have the Diesel Program Enforcement Branch, or DPED, and they conduct enforcement on heavy-duty vehicles and diesel equipment. That includes trucks, buses, off-road equipment, like in construction sites, and refrigeration units, like on trailers. There are 4 sections in that branch, and they work closely together to do enforcement several different ways. They conduct field inspections on heavy-duty vehicles. They use new technology like that PEAKS remote sensing device I mentioned earlier. They research vehicles and fleets using databases and conduct audits and do streamlined enforcement processes for vehicle screening. Staff in that branch work closely with operators and owners to help bring them into compliance. And there's a variety of assignments and roles, including field work, developing new technology, data analysis, programming, regulation development, and more. So that branch has staff both in Sacramento and in Riverside. In the middle, the Vehicle and Parts Consumer Products Enforcement Branch, say that 5 times fast, enforces all kinds of regulations through inspections and audits and testing. That branch is broken into 3 sections. The Vehicle Enforcement section works to investigate and resolve violations related to on-road vehicles and off-highway recreational vehicles, so cars and trucks and motorcycles, but also kit cars, golf carts, dirt bikes, that sort of thing. The Engine and Parts Enforcement section investigates and resolves violations related to diesel and gas engines, portable fuel containers, aftermarket vehicle parts, and defeat device cases. And a notable example of that would be this section was involved in investigating the VW Dieselgate scandal that took place in 2015. They work with engines used in forklifts, lawnmowers, and then also like aftermarket parts, such as tuners and exhaust headers. The Consumer Products Enforcement section in that branch investigates and resolves violations related to products like aerosols, cleaners, hair products, air purifiers, wood products, anything that might produce harmful pollution as a product like that. We can move to the Field Operations branch that has 3 sections, and they're working to reduce short-lived climate pollutants, diesel emissions, and fuels emissions through field enforcement at ports, refineries, landfills, and other facilities throughout the state. So there's currently 6 air pollution specialist positions, 3 air resources engineer positions, and 2 ART positions in that section, or in that branch, excuse me. And then last but not least, we have the Stationary Source Enforcement branch, which works heavily with communities and air districts in California. So one of Enforcement Division's goals is to ensure the consistent and effective enforcement in all of our air districts and at CARB by providing training that helps to improve the inspection investigation skills and increase stationary source knowledge. And that's what the training section does through a combination of online and live trainings that they produce. The community outreach and enforcement section is focused on environmental justice work through programs like that community air protection program and the supplemental environmental projects that I mentioned before. Those are community-based projects aimed at improving public health and reducing air pollution in the communities that need it most. And then both the permit evaluation and support section and district support section provide technical expertise and oversight to the 35 air districts to ensure that their programs are effective and meet statutory requirements. And the job positions in these sections include air resources engineers and air pollution specialists, with an ARE position expected to post shortly.